All right, so today we're going to be talking about equivalent ratios. Now, as you can see here, we're still in section 1, so we're still talking about the basics of ratios. And today we're talking about equivalent ratios. When you have equivalent ratios, it is two ratios that describe the same relationship. Okay. Now, it is very similar to equivalent fractions. So equivalent ratios are very similar to equivalent fractions. The only difference, the biggest difference that we have is that when ratios are talking about objects, fractions are just your numbers. So 1/2. This 4/3 means something, even if they don't have the labels here. That's what our ratios are talking about. So we need to determine whether equivalent, and because fractions are the same, it's best if we write them as fractions. So I'm going to take this 4/3, and I'm going to write it as a 4/3. Okay? And then I'm going to take this 20/15, and I'm going to write it as a 4/15, because this is the same thing. You can read this as 4/3, 20/15, okay? Now, we're determining if they are equivalent, which means equal. So that's exactly what I'm going to put there. I'm going to put an equal sign. Now, we don't know if it's equal yet, so that might not be true, but we're going to put that there because that's what we're trying to do. Now, there are two ways to determine something is equivalent, okay? Here's one way. We call it scaling up or scaling down. Now, the scaling up and scaling down part, deciding if it is easy. This is 4 and this is 20, that's up, okay? When we go up, we multiply. You could add or multiply. There is no adding or subtracting in this chapter. So when I say scale up or down, I mean dividing and multiplying. So this is scaling up and it's multiplication. So I ask myself, how do I get from 4 to 20 by multiplying? And that's easy. I do 4 times 5. Okay? And then I'm going to go down here and I'm going to do the same thing. Can I go from 3 to 5 by multiplying or dividing? Well, I'm going up, so that's multiplication. And I can go from 3 to 5, or from 3 to 15 by multiplying. I do times 5. Since I am doing the same thing, that means these are equal to each other. Okay? So that's one way to determine if they are equivalent, if you can do that. Most people prefer to do it this way. 4/3. Well, that's just a regular old fraction. I can do that, and I can type that into my calculator. So into your calculator, you would type in 4/3. Now, once you do that, you'd have to hit this fraction button, and then you'd get 4/3. That tells me that this fraction is already simplified. So this equals 4/3. Okay? 20/15. Let's see if that simplifies. So into my calculator, I'm going to type in 20/15. Again, we hit the fraction button. Simplified, that equals 4/3. So since they simplify into the same fraction, that means they equal each other. Okay? Now, you can pick whichever method you like, but personally, I find this one a lot quicker to determine if they are equivalent, so that's what I'm going to do for the rest of these. So, 5/7. I'm going to type that into my fraction. 5/7 gives me this. Hit the fraction button. 5/7. 10/21. Type it in. 10/21. Hit the fraction button. That simplifies into 10/21. Since these are both simplified fractions, that means these do not equal each other. So I'm going to put a line through that equal sign. That is not equal. Those are not equivalent fractions. I'm going to put a big fat no there. Okay? So let's try it with these. 1 over 1. I don't even need to type that in. I already know that's simplified. That simplifies into 1 over 1. 6 over 6. When you type that in as well, it's going to give you a 1, and that is over 1, which means these are equal. I'm going to say yes. Bam. What about 1 over 2? That's already simplified, so that's just going to give me 1 over 2. 3 over 4. Again, that's already simplified. Since those are simplified here, 1 over 2 does not equal 3 over 4. That is not the same fraction. So that one's going to get a no. It is not equal. Now, I have this one, and it does trick a lot of people, so I really hope that it doesn't trick you. So I'm going to show this one. I'm going to type it in, 8 over 3. Okay, hit the fraction button. I get 8 over 3. And then on this one, I've got 6 over 16. Now, you can tell just by looking at this one that it simplifies, because you can divide both of those ending 6 numbers by 2. So 6 divided by 16, type that in. That gives me 3 over 8. This is the one where I get a lot of people that want to say yes. But you have to ask yourself, is 8 over 3 the same thing as 3 over 8? Think about this as a test grade. If you got an 8 out of 3 on your quiz, well, that's not even possible. That sounds to me like you got some extra credit there. If you got a 3 out of 8, that's not a very good grade. That sounds like you only got 3 questions right out of 8, and that's an F. So these are not the same thing. That is a no. Okay? Modeling real life. Meg is speed walking at a pace of 5 meters every 2 seconds. Sean's pace is 10 meters every 5 seconds. Are they speed walking at the same pace? If not, who is faster? So, I've got Sean, or Meg, not Sean, who is speed walking at 5 meters. Don't forget your labels. When you can use them, use them. Every 2 seconds. Okay? 5 meters every 2 seconds. Now, if I simplify that, type it into my calculator, I get 5 over 2. Hit the button. That gives me 5 over 2. Bam, 5 meters every 2 seconds. Okay? And then I've got Sean's pace, which is 10 meters every 5 seconds. Bam, let's type that one in. 10 meters every 5 seconds. That gives me 2. And any whole number has a 1 underneath it. So that's 2 meters every 1 second. Okay? Now, that means that you are going to do 5 meters to 2 seconds and 2 meters to 1 second. So, are they speed walking at the same pace? 5 over 2 and 2 over 1 do not simplify into the same thing. So, no, they are not walking at the same pace. If not, who is faster? Now, they're very similar. They're very similar. But we don't know who's walking at the same pace. This is 1 second, and this is 2 seconds. And I can't really compare those if they're not the same thing. So I'm going to try and get this one to say 2 seconds. So if I want 2 seconds... Oh, it's not agreeing with me. So if I want 2 seconds on the bottom, if I go from 1 to 2, that's times 2. which means I need to times 2 on the top. And we'll spend more with this later, so if this isn't making a whole lot of sense to you, that's fine. That's a whole section that we'll do on that, so don't worry about that, okay? So it takes, oh, I wrote seconds. That's my bad. Meters is what I meant to write. Meg walks 5 meters every 2 seconds, and Sean walks 4 meters every 2 seconds, which means Meg is walking just a little bit faster. Okay? Oh, not focusing. All right, let's flip to the back. Some self-assessment. It wants you to write a ratio from sharks to dolphins. Now, as you can see, my picture isn't the greatest, but I do have one pulled up on my screen, so I can see what is a shark and what is a dolphin. So on my screen, I can see that this is a dolphin, this is a dolphin, this is a shark, this is a shark, this is a shark, that's a dolphin, that's a dolphin, this is a dolphin, and this is a shark. Okay, so write the ratio of sharks to dolphins. So I'm going to count out my sharks. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 sharks, don't forget your label. To the dolphins. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 dolphins. Capital D for dolphins. Dolphins to animals. Well, I already counted the dolphins. I know there are 5 of those. Okay. And then animals is all of those. They are all animals, so I got to add them up. If I've got 4 sharks and 5 dolphins, that means I have 9. And you can put a T for total, or since it said animals, I'm going to put A. 9 animals. Determine whether the ratios are equivalent. Now, I'm going to take a look at these two, and I know for a fact that those are both simplified already. These are bigger numbers, so they might be able to simplify into something else. So let's write down 24 over 36. See if that simplifies into something smaller. So let's type in 24 over 36. Hit the button. That gives me 2 over 3. Look at that. It matches that one. So for this first one, I'm going to put a yes. That is equivalent. Let's check this next one. I need 20 over 28. Let's type that in. 20 over 28. Hit the button. That gives us 5 over 7. Bam. Okay. And then, so that means this one is also equal. 2 over 3, 2 over 3, 5 over 7, 5 over 7. Different words, same question. Which is different and why? What kind of a relationship is peaches to pears? What kind of a relationship is 2 pears out of every 5 fruit? What kind of a relationship is 2 pears per 5 peaches? What kind of a relationship is 2 peaches for every 5 pears? Now, when I ask people what's different about these 4, they always struggle quite a bit to tell me what's different. The first thing you might notice is this. 2 out of every, 4 every, per, and that's not the biggest difference. So I want you to take a look just for a second, maybe like 15 seconds because I can see it on my thing. See if you can figure out the biggest difference between these 4, not what I just pointed out. Okay, I'm hoping that some of you saw it. The biggest difference is that this one says fruit. Please circle that. This one says pears, peaches, peaches, pears, peaches, pears, pears, and fruit. So that means that this relationship is part to whole, while the rest of these are part to part. They are talking about types of fruit. So go ahead and write part to part on the rest of these, and part to whole on that last one. Okay. Now, what you guys are going to do for the rest of the hour, the sub should have told you already, and I will have it on Google Classroom for you to see, but your iExcel is going to be S. So iExcel S7, okay? And you are going to need to get to a SMART score of 80. Okay, I want you to take your time with it because it can get kind of hard. We're going to ignore that for a second. It says, are these two equivalent? My recommendation is to take both of these, type it into your calculator, hit that fraction button, see if they equal the same thing. So you should have 1 on each one. So I've got 5 over 1 and 13 over 4. So I'm going to type in 5 over 1, enter, 13 over 4. Now, this one gave me 5, so I don't have to hit that button, but I gotta hit the fraction button on this one. 5 is not the same thing as 13 over 4, so I would say that these are not equivalent, okay? Now, after a while, it's going to give you a question where you have to select all that are equivalent, so you need to pay attention to that. Let's see if it'll give me one before it times me out. I don't think it's gonna. All right. Well, keep an eye out for those ones and take your time. Remember, iExcels always take longer if you do not take your time. Good luck.